Welcome to the Untypical Parent Podcast. It's a podcast for parents in additional needs families, and I'm your host, Liz Evans. This is the place to find your reassurance that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. It's here to make the hard bits feel lighter and the good bits brighter. Just quickly before we get started, are you looking for practical ways to support a child experiencing school anxiety? This season, I'm delighted to let you know that the Untypical Parent Podcast is sponsored by Terri Wyse from Wyse Inclusion and Rachel Helm from Helm Education Consultancy. They are experts in inclusive education and supporting children who struggle to access school. Together, they run webinars and workshops to help parents and schools work together and improve outcomes for children experiencing emotionally based school anxiety. If you're supporting a child struggling with school attendance, check the link in the show notes to find out more about how Terri and Rachel can support you. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Untypical Parent Podcast. I'm really delighted today to have a guest, a fellow OT, which is always exciting, another occupational therapist to talk to about OT stuff. I have got the fabulous Rhiannon Crispe with me today. Rhiannon, thank you so much for being with us.
Such a pleasure, Liz. Thanks for having me.
People that listen to the podcast will know that burnout is something that I talk a lot about, particularly in relation to parents. And what I was discovering when I was thinking about it, Rhiannon, was I actually looked back through like our catalogue of podcasts, and we're coming up to 50 now, is I have never done an episode on burnout. So I've had all these guests on, and the thing that I talk about the most, haven't done an episode about. So I'm really looking forward to having a conversation today where we can talk a bit about burnout. So have you kind of got a personal connection to burnout? Is that where your kind of interest has come from, Rhiannon?
Yeah, great question. I don't think, as per the current clinical definition, I've been burnt out if I reflect on it. I definitely feel I've had periods of burning out. So when we look at burnout, there is a period before you actually burn out where you're burning out. And I've had that period for sure, where I felt exhausted, fatigued, felt like everything was on top of me. I felt helpless. I couldn't get things done. You know, I am a perfectionist. I have high standards. I'm reliable. I like to get the job done. And when there's too many demands and not enough resources, and whether they're like my own internal resources or the things that I actually have to work with, whether that's in work life or my personal life, then I have had these times where life has just felt really tough, and I feel like I've ticked a lot of the symptoms for burning out, for sure. And I love too that you said that you talk about burnout in terms of how it relates to parents, because the current definition is just related to the workplace. It's currently
defined. You just read my mind then. That's where I was going with my question, and you read my mind. Go for it. Because this is the bit, and I think we've had a conversation, haven't we, kind of through LinkedIn, I think, with this frustration around the kind of criteria around what is burnout. And I think as OTs probably we're like, what do you mean occupation is just work? It's got to be more than that. It surely has to be more than that. But actually, at the moment, that's what it's classified as, is a work-based phenomenon.
Yes. Yeah. So the World Health Organization currently defines burnout as a chronic stressor that hasn't been successfully managed. And so you're right. There is the problem that it currently pigeonholes burnout to the workplace only. So the context of the workplace. And we know this, like there is so much talk about people burning out at work. And I think the rates are like 1 in 2. It's like 50% at least, 50 to 66%, I think.
And that's who reports it, isn't it, I think?
Yeah,
because actually I think some people don't even recognise that's what they're heading towards.
Yes. And because it's very well talked about. People talk about burnout very casually, like, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm burning out. It's very common to talk about it because there isn't that same stigma that there is around other mental health conditions. So depression, etc. because it's not classified as a mental health condition.
Mm,
It is, as you said, a workplace-based phenomenon.
yeah.
And so people feel more comfortable saying, like, I'm burnt out, I'm burning out.
Yeah. And I think also there's this kind of feel, isn't it, that the way it's described by the World Health Organization is it's a failure. And I often think
Mhm.
when I read it, it feels very much like a failure on the person's part, that they're
Mhm.
somehow less of a person. And I think, in days gone by, I've heard of people going, oh, they're burnt out. They're not resilient enough. They're not
Mhm.
strong enough. They're not tough enough. They just need to toughen up a bit. I wouldn't burn out. But actually, I did a talk a little while ago and say, we've all got the potential to burn out. The perfect storm, we don't never know what's coming our way. That burnout is potential for all of us. And actually, we're much better off thinking, well, I could. So what can I do about it? And how can I protect myself from it rather than ending up in burnout and then having to recover?
Mhm. Exactly. So if we're to dissect that definition, so a chronic workplace stressor, so we've looked at the workplace and we've said, hey, actually, there's more to that.
Yeah.
But the other part is that hasn't been successfully managed. What you're
Yeah.
alluding to here is that part saying that when we say that the person hasn't successfully managed this condition called burnout, we do point the finger. It feels like we're pointing the finger to the person and that it is an individual inherent problem within me.
Yeah.
And that means we're less likely to look at the environment and the
Yeah.
problems that are causing the burnout in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't love the current definition of burnout. We know that there's autistic burnout, there's caregiver burnout, there's parents who have burnout, there's so many different types of burnout depending on the role that someone has and the context that they're in. There's lots of different types of burnout that occur in different places and spaces.
Yeah. And I suppose I do quite a lot of talking with parents about understanding and helping them to understand that it's not a failure on their part. And you talk a lot about in your model about misalignment and that. And I think as OTs, we often look very much to the environment as well. It's not just about you as a person. You are living within a system, an environment, a world, a life with other people and things and demands and all those kind of things. And actually, it just like you talked about earlier, I think I've mentioned with parents is that it just the demands outweigh our capacity, and
Mhm.
and and that's not a deficiency in us. That's just things have got huge. And the
Mhm.
link I have with parents, of course, is that especially parents that are in additional needs families, is often those stresses are really high, depending on the things that are around them. Systems they're having to deal with, the needs of their kids. And a lot of the parents don't even realize they are burning out. So, what does burnout look like, Rhiannon?
Mm,
How might
yeah,
someone realize they might be burning out?
that's a great question. So, the current characteristics that they've identified, there are three. So, the first one is exhaustion. Like you just feel depleted. You're totally exhausted. You just feel like you cannot fill up your cup. It doesn't matter if you go on holiday, you come back and like you're exhausted in wherever you go. A holiday doesn't cure the exhaustion. Whereas if you just feel, a little bit overworked or um, there's something not right, if you go on a holiday, you come back, you're rejuvenated, you're refreshed, you're good to go. So the first one is that just chronic exhaustion. The second one is cynicism. So feeling really negative all the time. So if it is in regards to a workplace, you're just negative about the whole workplace and nothing's going right and you have this negative attitude towards it. The third one is a, a lack of sense of accomplishment. You feel like
Yeah,
you're not achieving anything. It's this reduced personal efficacy, they call it.
yeah,
So it basically means that you feel like you're not efficient, you're not good at your job, and you're not accomplishing anything.
yeah,
There's a lot more to it. So I agree with those three, and I also feel so. There's been a lot of other work that's been done. Gordon Parker has done a lot of work in this space. He's identified other themes as well. So there's this mental and cognitive load So people describe brain fog, like you're foggy in the brain and you're just not as sharp as what you would be typically. You're not answering questions properly. It's taking you longer to reply to that email. You keep reading it over and over again and you still can't process what exactly it is it's saying and how you're going to respond to it. So you just feel fuzzy and foggy all the time. And then there's like a social component too. So you're feeling less social. You don't want to be as connected to others. And so when you have all these factors or quote unquote symptoms, I don't like to call them symptoms, but when you have all these characteristics, it there's a potential that you could have burnout. However, you really need to look at the context to determine whether it is burnout, because you could have a negative attitude, you could be totally exhausted and you feel like you're not accomplishing anything, but you could also be depressed. You could also have anemia. You could also have a number of other conditions. So how do we know that it's burnout? So the clinician or the therapist or the health professional that's working with you may identify all those characteristics, but has to go, hey, like, what's happening in your life right now? Like, as occupational therapists, we need to get really curious and find out why are these things happening? And if we identify that there is this overwork that you're talking about, like the demands are too great, like there's too many chronic stresses in the person's life, if there is this misalignment between a person's values and the workplace or the caregiving duties that they're doing or the amount that they're expected, or there's no reward or recognition for the work that they're doing in any capacity, caregiving, parenting, workplace, jobs, then this is what contributes to the burnout. And we go, okay, there is a clear pattern here, and this is consistent with what we know burnout to be.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people kind of throw the word burnout around. It's very kind of, oh, yeah, like you say, I'm burnout. And I often hear, coaches or counselors or whatever talking about how they support burnout. And I get really upset about the self-care stuff. That kind of, it's almost like a toxic self-care. And I think the way I describe it is that I've been burnt out. So I not only did saw myself burning out, I did completely burn out. And what you described there was exactly the kind of characteristics that presented for me as well. But what was so difficult is in that time, there's a lot of pressure, and it felt like pressure to just look after yourself. Well, if you just, those words, if you just take a holiday, and I like, it was funny you said about the holiday, because I often say, you could have sent me to Barbados for 4 weeks on my own. It wouldn't have touched the sides. That wasn't what it was about. It was about everything that was happening. No amount of rest, although rest is really important and it's part of it, it is not the sole answer. And that's the bit that I get, I think, because what happens is you say, well, they need to do more rest. And then as parents, we can't. So then you get into this, well, I'm a rubbish parent, and if only I could, and then you're in this cycle. And that bit really worries me sometimes about when people are working and supporting people that are burning out or burnt out, is that they're not really looking at everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what happens there, Liz, is that, like you said, you can go to the Bahamas, Barbados, wherever, choose your destination.
Yeah.
And the reason it doesn't go away is because you come back to the same environment that is causing those characteristics in the first place. So you come back to the same workplace or to the same family dynamics that may not be a healthy situation, or it may be just too much work for you and you're not seeking support and you're not outsourcing things to other people that can help you, then the problem remains. The problem exists. So we need to be looking not only at the person, because yes, there are personal characteristics. So if you are that type A personality, if you are sensitive, if you are a perfectionist, you are more likely to experience burnout. However, if you're in an environment too that puts too many demands on you, that where you don't have good relationships with the people that you're working with, or um, the people in your space, in a place that doesn't have the same values as you, where the culture is a mismatch for yours, you're going to be burnt out. So it doesn't matter how many holidays you go on, you come back to that same environment and the workload and the pressures are still there.
And I
It's not
think
going to
when you talk
resolve
about
anything.
the values is something, again, I think that OTs are very good at recognizing is really important to us. You know, we're looking at us holistically, but also thinking about our values is that's really important. And there is this mismatch. And sometimes I think, you know, when we've got kids that are needing additional support, is that sometimes we're in systems where their values don't align with our values. And as parents, that's really difficult when you come up against a system that, you know, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but if for us here in the UK, is it's very rigid, the structure. The kids are very much expected to fit into boxes, and when they
Mhm,
don't, it all falls apart. And the pressure on parents is huge. And I
mhm,
often talk with parents about, you know, some of our burnout is because there are immovable stresses in our life. Because that's the other thing, is when we think about work and burnout, people will go, well, just change job, you know, move to a different job. But actually, when we're talking about something like parental burnout, is, you know, I can't change my kids, or, you know, can't often move away from the system.
mhm,
And we are then trying to navigate our way around with stresses in our life that are immovable. And
mhm.
I think OTs, again, are really well placed for that, to support
Yeah.
in that moment. What else can you do? And is that
Mhm.
something that kind of you've come up
Yeah,
against as
and
well with it?
it's looking at what you can control and what you can't
Yes.
control. So what you've identified there is the systems. We cannot control them. That's often without, outside of our control. What we can do is we can do two things: things that we can do personally, and then also things that we can try and influence. So for us personally, we might recognize if we are, if we have a child who has neurodivergent needs, we can look at, because again, too, the only person we can change is ourselves. We cannot change someone else to create change. We can only change us. So, how do we show up differently? What are different environments that we can create for our child so that there are less noises, so that we're not taking them to the shopping center at peak shopping time and there's not sounds and people brushing up against them and all these different sensory overloads? What are some supports that we can put in place as well? Some accommodations. Do we have the headphones? Do we have the fidget tools? Do we have anything that accommodates their sensory or personal needs? What are the things that we can put in place? And so they're things that we can take control over and feel empowered about, because there are things that we can do. If we feel like there's too much workload and we're almost the martyr, like we're just doing everything. We get home, we're the cook, we're the admin assistant, we are the parent and the the million and one roles that we have as a caregiver. We might go, well, what can I outsource? What don't I have to do? Well, hey, grandma lives down the road. I might ask her to pick up the kids on a Monday and a Friday and take them to soccer, because that's just one less thing that's on my list. And it gives me the capacity to cook dinner that night, and we can have leftovers the next night. What can we do to support our capacity so that we're burning in and we're not burning out?
Yeah. And I think what that leads me on really perfectly, almost seamlessly, Rhiannon, to talk about the model that you've created, because I'm really excited to see this model now. Before we kind of go into that, because some parents will be listening and thinking, well, what is a model? I don't really understand what that is. Could you talk us through what a model actually is? Because we use them in occupational therapy. I'm sure other practitioners and, you know, healthcare professionals use them as well. But what would you describe a model as?
Yeah. Well, for parents, And for our model in particular, I basically describe it as a tool. So our model is something that can be used with parents to support them to understand and bring awareness to where their life currently is right now and support them to move from that place to where they want to be. So the burn-in model is a model that I've co-created with Michelle Lucan. And basically, burn-in is the opposite of burnout. So if we imagine our life like a fire, and this is to put it really simply, and it's so simple, it's so intuitive, like we get it. We know that burnout, like we have this idea and understanding of a flame, and when it's burnt out, we describe we're burnt out. At the opposite end is this big, bright, beautiful flame. And I think of it as my inner flame. It's inside me. And when it's burning big and bright, I'm burning in. And if we understand burnout as a misalignment between who we are, like our values and our sense of identity and who we want to be, misaligned with the things that we're doing in our life and the places that we belong to. That's what burnout looks like. Burn-in is alignment. It's the alignment between who we are, the meaningful activities that we do, and the places and spaces that we belong to. And so this flame of alignment within us, it lives within an ecosystem, and we can go into the different parts of the ecosystem. But obviously we need fuel for our fire to burn bright. So we need those our sticks and our logs are the meaningful occupations, the meaningful activities that we can put on the fire to help it burn big and bright. And when we don't have those meaningful activities that we're doing to sustain us, our flame does start to flicker and we can burn out. If we're not in a supportive environment, if we're in a toxic environment where we're always put down, where we're not supported, where we don't have any cheerleaders in our life, where it's just, it's hard and we don't feel like we have that great support. And this is where you said earlier, we have this storm in our life. Like that's our environment. It's the storm and it puts out our fire, puts out our inner flame, and so often parents just have, this little flicker. It's this little flicker. It's keeping them above board. But as soon as we get the thunderstorm in our life and shit really hits the fan, like we can really be at moving towards that burnout phase. And we need to recognize what we can do to prevent it. And in the model, and this is something that people can draw as well. Smoke symbolizes burning out. It's our SOS to the world.
Yeah.
When there's smoke, it's our signal of help. I need some help right now. So when we get really good at identifying for ourselves what burning out looks like, we can try and prevent the burnout. And this is especially important for therapists working with individuals because we can catch it before we actually head to burnout. So, for me, it's like being irritable. I'm snappy. I'm moody. I probably cry more. And we all have these own individual characteristics that we start to see. And if we can see the pattern, like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this so much more than I normally would, then we can seek help. We can start outsourcing things. We can change our environment if that's possible. We can realign with our values and start looking at ways that we can, again, refuel and fuel our inner fire.
And what I love about this is it's so visual. I've often found when I've worked with people, the visual side of things really helps people. Is that kind of why you went for it being so visual?
Yeah, well, so Michelle came up with the idea of the flame, which I was just like, oh my gosh, how has no one ever done this before? This is legendary. And so we really rolled with it and started to label different parts of this ecosystem. And it really helps people to look at their life in a non-judgmental way. What I found in practice is that it can be really hard to have a one-on-one conversation with someone across the table and look into their eyes and talk about how their life is and what boundaries they need to put in place, etc., etc. But if we do it through a model where we can draw, the person can draw their flame, they can draw if it's a big bright flame or if it's burning out and dwindling or if it's a lump of coal at the moment. And we can draw rocks. Rocks symbolize boundaries. And we can draw rocks around the fireplace because the rocks, the boundaries protect our inner flame. And we can actually start to map it out. And it feels like the person feels a bit removed. They don't feel like they're being judged. They're drawing it out through these symbols. And what I love about this model is that it integrates this. You can do it through illustration, you can do it through painting, you can do it through conversation if you'd like. But it also brings in sort of I suppose more the Western side of like metrics and, like we like to analyze things, visual, analog scale, from 1 to 5. So we've got a flame. If your flame's burning out or if you're coal, it's a 1. And if you're in the middle, it's a 2, 3, 4. And then we've got 5 is where your flame is that big and bright. You're feeling that sense of alignment in your life or living aligned with your values. You feel this sense of connection and belonging to the communities that you're a part of and the family and the relationships in your life. And you're also doing the meaningful things that you love to do. So you're feeling engaged, you're passionate, or fired up, right? Like we already use these terms.
Yeah, we do.
Like we say, if I'm to look at alignment and misalignment, we say alignment. I'm fired up. I'm lit up. I'm burning bright. There's a fire in my belly. Like we use these terms already. And then for misalignment, we'll say things like, I'm burning the candle at both ends. I'm burnt out. Oh, she's lost her spark. We already use these terms and we've literally put a new reframe around it so people can use it practically in their life, in therapy. They can journal about it and think about it without it feeling so heavy. And it really just brings a sense of awareness to where am I right now? How many logs do I have on the fire that are helping my flame burn bright?
Yeah.
How many damp logs do I have on the fire that are actually sucking the oxygen out of the fire? The activities that we don't enjoy doing, that we feel we have to do. Like how do we remove that damp, wet log?
Yeah.
What rocks have I put around my fire to protect myself? Like digital boundaries,
Yeah.
Maybe I need to put my phone on flight mode when I'm playing with my kids so I'm fully present. Maybe that's a boundary I need. Maybe it's switching my work phone off when I get home, not answering emails after 4:00 in the afternoon. What are the emotional boundaries? Maybe I'm spending so much time with Susie down the road with all her challenges in life that I'm forgetting about my needs and my children's needs. Like, what are some big rocks we can place around our inner fire so that we protect our space, our time, our energy, and our life, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about that is it kind of almost as well about that sense of that flame will flicker. And I think sometimes when we're working with people, the misunderstanding is that I'm never going to become burnt out again. I'm going to be happy all the time and everything's going to be amazing. And we know that's not what life is about. But what I love about the flame is that there are these protective factors around it. And yes, there may be environmental things, or like we talked about the storm, we never know what's going to happen, that might dampen it down, that might make it a bit smaller. But actually, when we talk about that actually there are ways that we can it will come back. It's not gone forever. We can
Yes.
build it back up again. And I think that's another really important part of burnout is it will change. There will be a
Yes.
recovery.
Yeah. And life is dynamic. And just
Yes.
like life is dynamic, so is your inner flame. And
Yeah.
we ride through the seasons and we have some really hard, tough moments in
Yeah.
life. And sometimes
Yeah.
we feel helpless. We feel like we are not going to make it through, like it's just going to go on forever and ever. And it's just Groundhog Day. And what's beautiful about the model is with the coal, so we look at coal as burnout, like that's
Yeah.
when you're burnt out. But there is a symbol in the model, and that is a spark, and spark means life. And so even with the coal, we still have the spark present because it means there is still hope, there is still possibility,
Yeah.
and there's still potential for that coal. That coal can be a beautiful, renewable energy source again. It
Mm.
can fuel the fire once more.
Mm.
So there is always hope. And it's looking at what you can do from your perspective, like what's within your control. Are there personality factors that are contributing to this? Are you a parent that feels like you need the washing done, the dishes cleaned, the washing fold, like everything put away, the bedrooms need to be immaculate?
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to take a check in and say, well, maybe, that would be my ideal, but it's not realistic in this season of life. I do not have the capacity. Let
Yeah.
me take a check in and see what I can change.
Yeah.
See what I can outsource, see where I can get some help. And then if it's not possible, well, maybe I need to just peel it back a bit, need to pare it back so I can do what I can do without burning out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
again, it's looking at the environment. What things within the environment can I change?
Mm. And there's another lovely bit as part of the model that you talk about. And I know there are many different ones, but there's a bit that you talk about, which is embers in there, which I just love. Can you
Yeah.
explain a bit about that? Because there are different ones as well in there, but the one that
Yes.
really
Yeah.
sits with me is the embers bit. And I think we often forget that when we are burning out or burnt out, is that actually there are
Mhm.
times when our flame is really strong, is
Mhm.
what that goes on to do in the
Yes.
world. And I'm not going to
Yes.
ruin it and take your thunder, Rhiannon. I'm going to let you describe that bit.
No, no, that's beautiful. Take it away, Liz. Um, so so one of the elements that we have in the burn-in model is embers. And we imagine embers to be these beautiful little flickers, the embers that fly off the fire. And when the fire's burning big and bright, you see the little embers that will drift off into the wind.
I have such a visual picture with this when you describe this.
Oh,
I can see
yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah. And the night is dark and the moon is out.
Yeah, yeah.
And and so these embers represent your gifts to the world. So when you are living in alignment and you are burning in and your fire is sustainable and it may be big and bright, but it's at least sustainable, you you can share your gifts to the world. And this could be, your gifts may be kindness, it may be courage, it may be offering your neighbor a bowl of soup because they've had a fall and they can't get out of bed to make it themselves. It might be a knitted jumper for a grandchild. It might be advocating for your child in a meeting that is really hard. And this is your gift. This is your gift to your child, to the world, because you're standing in alignment with your values, with what's true to you, your true north. And this is where you burn in. It doesn't always mean it's easy. It's sometimes what takes courage and being brave. And so when these beautiful embers fly off, they can drift in the wind, and these gifts can land in someone else's heart. They can land with someone else who may need to hear that bit of bravery that you've put out there on social media, or may need to receive that little smile that you gave them down the street, and they just walk away and they feel $1,000,000 and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay it forward. And then so the cycle continues. Their flame gets a little bit brighter. They're burning in a little bit more, and we can share our embers with others.
Yeah. And I think sometimes as parents, and probably other people as well, but when you're parents, we often, when life gets hard and we're giving ourselves a hard time of, I'm not the perfect parent, I'm not good enough, I should be doing this, that, and the other. That actually, I love that concept of coming back to that even though maybe your fire isn't burning that bright at that moment, there will still be little embers coming off. They're not massive things that I have to do, but actually,
Mm-mm.
there's little things. And I love the concept again of that it might end up somewhere that you don't even know. Like you say, that little smile. And I created a T-shirt a little while ago, and it was based off the back of I had been in a GP practice waiting to see the GP, and there was a mum in there with her young son, and he was very, very distressed and obviously finding it really hard. And she was just I felt for her, and she was looking around and kind of apologising to people, and he looked very, very embarrassed by it. And he was just distressed. He was having a really hard time. But it's like going to the doctor's surgery; it's complete silence, and you're just like,
Yes.
"Oh no!" And I don't know what made me do it, Rhiannon, but I just nodded at her. Probably other people would have thought I was completely crazy, and her face lit up. And she smiled back, and all I wanted to do in that moment was just go, "I get you. I see you." And it's those little moments. It doesn't have to be huge, I'm going to take the kids here or do this to somebody. It literally could be a smile and a bit of an acknowledgement is just one of those
Mhm.
embers. And sometimes that actually helps your fire, when we see
It
those go off
does.
and do something.
Yeah, I got goosebumps, Liz. And I've had very similar situations where, I'm down the street and you see a child who's having a meltdown. It could be sensory overload or too
Yeah.
much, and they're cracking it. And you'll see some people walk past. And I think because it's happened to me before as well. I remember a man walking past and saying to me, he actually said something to my daughter like, "Oh, having a little tanty, are you?" Not really, just didn't have the awareness, right? And then again, like that just was something that always sat with me because I was like, oh, I felt my daughter's shame when he said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I remember it happening again, but I was witnessing it this time in another family. And you walk past and you just give them exactly what you said, that little nod and that little smile to say, I see you.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
they feel it. There doesn't have to be any words spoken, and they feel it. Just
Yeah.
that recognition. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
it's
so that
almost a
is
bit
that
like
little
it
ember.
it's a bit like borrowing from somebody else, isn't it? Their flame is maybe a bit brighter than yours, and you're borrowing a bit from their embers. And I think
Mhm.
that's such a nice way of maybe just looking at the whole world. We could all do with doing
Yes.
that at the moment, I think, with
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yes.
Um, with regards to kind of elements, Rhiannon, is there any kind of other ones that you kind of are really important and
Yeah.
that kind of
Well,
stand
I
out for
think,
you?
I mean, if we look at there's 8 elements altogether, but I
Mm,
think one of the most important elements as an occupational therapist is the sticks and the logs. And so I do want to touch on that because what happens when we're burnt out? So the sticks and the logs represent our personal factors, like our personality, and we can change that to an extent. And then our activities that we're doing in our day to day life. So we put them on the fire, and they can fuel the flame. But there are supportive and there are unsupportive personal factors and activities that we do in our life, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So what happens when someone is burning out or burnt out, they tend to throw the little sticks on the fire, the little twigs, right? They're the quick bursts of energy. It's going to give you a quick dopamine hit, but
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. So it might be your coffee in the morning, you get that quick hit, or it might be a quick scroll on social media, you get that dopamine hit. But when we're burning out and when we're burnt out, what we really need is the big logs. We need the big logs that are going to be sustainable fuel for
Mm,
alignment,
mm,
for burn in. So this could be regular exercise. It could be a really good sleep. It could be a healthy food. Like if we look at all the pillars of well-being, maybe for someone it could be getting back into guitar and reconnecting with that meaningful occupation
yeah.
of playing guitar. Like what is it for you that's going to help your flame burn big and bright? So we need to add those big logs back onto the fire to sustain this sense of alignment in our life
Mm,
so we don't burn out. And so often as parents and caregivers, the big logs are the first things to go, right?
Oh, I was just about to go to you. Those are the ones that have gone out the window usually. Like you say, first thing to go are the ones that are around our kind of joy and what we get joy from.
Yeah. And it's so easy to reach for the quick fixes and the quick dopamine hits, but it doesn't provide that sustainable alignment long term. We need the
Yeah.
big logs fueling the fire. And then we also have logs that can be damp, that can be sucking oxygen out of the fire. And they might be engaging in activities that just aren't meaningful to us. Like we don't find meaning in them. They're not aligned with our values. We don't enjoy them. And so just bringing awareness to what they are for us, so they're not sucking sucking that oxygen out of the fire and draining us. So I think that's one of the most important things that we can look at, especially when we're looking at what's within our control.
Mm.
Um,
What's been so nice is to think about the burn-in model, because I think again it's given a kind of structure and it's brought everything together for me, and I think has definitely it will impact and has impacted the work that I'm now doing as well at my end. And I think just kind of bringing it full circle is the first time I came to find out and know a bit more about you, Rhiannon, was I was at a point in my career when I thought I'm done. Probably burnt out from being an OT actually, and was completely done with OT. I didn't want to be an OT anymore. And just if there are any other OTs out there, and actually I don't know, probably would be worth some parents watching it as well, actually, is you have the most amazing short film that you made called It's Finding Me in OT, isn't it?
yeah.
It's a video that I go back to over and over again. When I have wobbles, that's the one that I go back to. And it's probably one of the only things that I've watched in my whole career that has hit me in the heart, as in gone, oh my God, that's what OT is all about for me. I think if I hadn't have watched that video, I wouldn't be an OT. I would have given it up and walked away from it. So I want to say a very special thank you, because it made a huge, massive difference to me and my career and the way I think about OT, and kind of gave me the permission to go off and do things a bit differently. And I didn't have to stick in this very structured role that I felt was sucking the life out of me, basically, actually. And I feel like my flame is definitely burning brighter because of that film that I watched. So I use it all the time. For my supervisions, I'm like, go and watch this movie. It's going to change your life. There are so many OTs that I work with that are going through similar, they've been in systems that are tough to work in, that take away our creativity and make us not the OTs we used to be, I suppose. It never matched what I wanted OT to be when I came out and worked in NHS, education, that kind of thing.
Yeah. One thing we didn't touch on, Liz, and I love that, first of all, like that warms my heart and fuels my fire so much.
Good.
That's one big log, like that's, yeah, it's amazing to hear that. Thank you so much. One thing we didn't touch on, so we spoke about what's within our control and what's not within our control, but then there's what's we can influence. So you said then occupational therapists who are stuck in systems, who lose their creativity. So something that I think we can have influence over is discussing, like we can talk to our supervisor, we can talk to our boss and say, hey, like I've got this great idea, like get it all prepared before you go in, be excited and enthusiastic about it. Like don't hide that part of yourself, be authentic. And you just never know, because I think there is so much space for more creativity, more ideas within our profession. And it's only when people speak out, it's only when people feel that sense of courage and bravery. Because, I did a post the other day and it was about that I don't think we ever feel ready. We just feel brave.
Yeah, I agree.
I've done podcasts. I created the film. I've hosted lots of different online summits. And one of the biggest things that I had to get over was actually talking to people. I remember my very first podcast, Liz, and oh my God, it was a train wreck. I think I said, every second like word, I started deleting it, and I think I deleted about half the recording. No. Because I had that many ums in it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even listen back. It was just so cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Yet here I am, 7 years later. I've recorded over 200 episodes of 2 different podcasts, and it's just this constant becoming. It's stepping into what you value, even when it's hard. It's stepping into the work that you want to do, the impact that you want to have, even when your voice shakes, even when you feel like people might judge you or misunderstand you, or you might say something that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean it like that. It's come out the wrong way. I do hear from a lot of therapists who worry about that, saying something and it's not evidence-based, or it's just going to be perceived wrong. And I've done that many a time, and it's being humble and knowing that we're all human, and we also reserve the right to change our mind. We don't have to, that's one of the things that I look back on, and I think I've changed my mind so many times over my career. And I don't have to be held to any one idea that I've had, and it's okay to evolve, and we're here to evolve and transform and grow. So,
Yeah.
just
I think
be
I think the
gentle.
creativity is so important, and I think I talk about that a lot with parents. Is actually, what do you want to do? What would if you could do anything, what would it be? And sometimes we
Mhm.
can't always be as fantastical as we would like to be, but it's about being creative, and I think we lose that so quickly. I was reading a bit of research, and I'm rubbish with numbers. I'm dyslexic, so I don't remember them. I'll just own it. I was reading a bit of research, and they were talking about measuring creativity in young children and how creative they are. And by the time they finished, I think it was the end of primary school, was a huge amount of their creativity basically just dropped off. It had I think way past half had gone. And I just thought, and then you look at parents when we become adults, and where does our creativity go? And, we know from being OTs that actually creativity is so important to our health and well-being. And, how do we get to be creative and follow dreams and do amazing things? And we all have dreams, don't we? But I think
Yeah,
sometimes as
and
parents, they get
play, that
shifted.
sense of
Yes.
play.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the elements in the burn-in model is ash, and ash represents end of life and
Yeah.
legacy and
Yeah.
lineage. And the legacy part, I look at and think, if I was to look back on my life, what is it that I want to leave behind? What is the little bits of impact that I want to leave behind that's going to sit at the base of my fire, and that's going to be part of, my children's fire? And is it that I want to show up as a present mum who had time to play, who had time to laugh, who had the capacity to sit at the edge of my daughter's bed and pat her head as she goes to sleep? Like, sometimes I feel, as a parent myself, 2 daughters, that life can just go so fast. It speeds up, and you get to the end of the year and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Christmas already. Where did that year go? But if we just slow down the days a little bit and go, and I think one of my sort of things that I remind myself is that this moment shall pass.
Yes.
They're not going to be this young forever. I'm not going to be able to do these things forever. One day they're going to be driving themselves to school and then going to see their boyfriend, and they're going to have more important and better things to do. But right now, like, how can I savor this time? And even when the meltdown hits, and even when they're not getting to bed and it's still 3 hours later and they're crying and it's hard, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
please, I just
Yeah.
want to go to bed. I'm so tired. I've got all this work to do, and then I've got to wake up. If I'm just present, what I've noticed is that it becomes easier. Things become easier when I give that bit more of me energy into it rather than say, go to bed and do this. And then just playing, like more time to have fun and laugh,
Yeah.
and because we do forget it. And
Huge.
this,
Yeah.
like it's so good. Like, when was the last time you had a belly laugh? Like, you just laughed so hard, your stomach
Yeah.
hurt. Like,
Yeah.
bring back those days. Like, how do we create those moments where, and I'll tell you how, it's again, like we come back to burn in. It's when we're connected to the people that we love, right? We have this sense of belonging. They get us. They're not a flame drain, right?
Yeah. Flame
They
drain. I like that.
they they
Flame
just
drain.
get us, and we can
Yeah.
laugh, and we're just our authentic selves. And then we're doing the things that are meaningful to us. And again, it's in alignment with our authentic self, and we're being our true self that's in alignment with our identity, our values, and our sense of purpose. So when those three things line up, our being, our meaningful doing, and our sense of belonging, we burn in, right? And so this is what we want, and I want more people to be burning in, not out.
I 100% agree. I think that I couldn't have brought that all together better, Rhiannon, than you just brought that all perfectly together. I think what I want to say is thank you ever so much for coming on. I was really looking forward to this conversation. And say, I haven't talked about burnout on the podcast, which seems crazy, but I'm glad I got to do it with you, because actually that's felt like the right time to do it and to talk about it. The model, I think, is a great model. It's definitely having an impact on my practice, and I hope that I can do it justice and kind of start to share it as well as much as we can, because I think it's a great model. Is there anything you kind of want to leave listeners with, Rhiannon? Any kind of, I mean, you summed it up beautifully, so possibly not, but is there anything, kind of one bit of advice or anything that you might give to parents at the moment if they're having a tricky time and they might be thinking, I'm burning out or I am burnt out? Is there anything you would say to them
Mm,
right now?
mm. First of all, you know, I have, I have a friend who is burning out or is having a really hard time at the moment. And what I realized was asking her via text message, "How are you?" was really hard for her to answer. She's
Yeah.
it was too much cognitive overload to even answer that question. And so I asked, on a scale of 1 to 5, how's your inner flame today? And so I think I'd ask this of the parents, like, check in with yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you're feeling burnt out, and 5 being you feel alive, energized, and aligned in life, and you're
Yeah.
burning in.
Yeah.
Bring that awareness, like, where are you right now? And just notice it. Like, that's the biggest thing, is this noticing and awareness. And is this what we're like a lot of the time? Like, where are we at? Where are we sitting? And then I'd ask, what's one tiny stick? What's one tiny stick you can throw on your fire today that can help your flame burn a bit brighter? What is it that you need right now? What's one little meaningful activity that you can do that's just going to help your flame burn a bit brighter? Or what's one rock that you can
Yeah.
put around your flame that's going to protect you today? What's a boundary you need to put in place?
Yeah. I love that. I love
Mm.
that. Rhiannon, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. I know it's quite late at night for you, probably in Australia at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, 9:30, but we're
Right.
all good.
We need to give you your time back as well this evening. So it just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And if people want to find Rhiannon, what we'll do is we'll make sure all Rhiannon's contact details, anywhere you want to find her, I know she's across lots of the socials. I'll also link in the video, and we'll link in, because you've got a specific website now, haven't you, for your burn-in model?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So I'll link that in as well and make sure everything's there so people can reach out to you if they've got any questions or anything like that. But thank you ever so much for joining me, Rhiannon.
Amazing. Thanks, Liz. Been a pleasure.
Just before you go, I just want to give you a quick reminder that if you want to follow me on Instagram, the podcast has its own Instagram page, the Untypical Parent Podcast. And if you fancy maybe being a podcast host, I also have an Instagram page for the Untypical Podcaster, supporting those of us who feel like we maybe don't quite fit the podcasting mold, but really fancy trying our hand at podcasting, make sure to go and follow me on those, and I'll see you at the next episode.